This is a homage beat.
What you're saying, but have you seen them? You see what they have? And God is like, and yeah, but that's not the point. What you see with your eyes is what you're focused on. Don't be focused on that. Focus on me. Focus on what I told you. Focus on what I have commanded you to do. And I think that's what God is upset about. You're making all excuses, but God this, they have that. That's not what God is worried about. God is worried about what his commands are. That's what he wants you to do. And you can't lose if God's in your corner. Exactly. So it's like you should have all the confidence in the world, right?
And it's like, it sounds especially so easy for us to say it looking back in hindsight, but I'm sure we would have been among the ones like, I don't know about this. I didn't leave slavery to go start fighting some people.
Right.
And I'm fighting people who I don't think I can beat.
Right.
So again, logically, they were in the right. But God was saying, wait, I'm telling you that I'm with you. That I'm going to what? Put them in, I forget what the term they use, that I'm going to bring them into your hand or something, some kind of euphemism that he continually says, essentially saying, I'm going to grant you victory.
Right.
That I promise that I'm going to grant you victory. And again, it's so easy for us to look back and say, you should have listened to God, but it's like, how often times that we don't trust that what God is going to do what he says that he's going to do. And just, again, thinking about this idea of protection. Has there been a time where you ever felt that you were in need of protection? I know for me, like when we moved from Virginia here, we were set to buy a house. And we were in a neighborhood, and I know I was by myself at one point, and I lived in apartments my whole life. And so again, just having that false sense of security being in an apartment, but for some reason being in a home, I felt less secure.
Really?
I don't know why. And for the first time in my life, I was like, I think I might buy a gun. And I don't have nothing against guns, but I literally was like, I think I might need some additional form of protection aside from just the security system, where I was strongly considering purchasing a gun. Not that I necessarily fear for my safety, but it was like, this is going to be mine.
Right.
And it's like, I got to do whatever I can to protect it. So it was a strong consideration getting a gun. I don't know if you had any experience where you was like, man, I'm in need of some sort of protection.
I think it really just for me, just caution. Whenever you're out at night, there's always that element of, I might need some sort of a protection or something like that. I don't have anything on me, what do I have or something like that. That's pretty much. I can't really think of any times where I did.
What about this one? I know for me, when I was when me and Mylena started dating, like she was like super Miss Independent and this, that, and the third. And like, cause our school, it was close to Walmart, but it was a walk.
Right.
It was a walk down this hill, across the train tracks, and then across like heavy traffic. And so I was always like, even we weren't even married or anything like that. It was like, you're not going by yourself.
Right.
You're not going by yourself. Now I don't want to give too much of your business out, but you are in a relationship. Do you have that sense of I've got to protect?
Always. I'm always looking out. To make sure that everything is good around us. I just always had that third eye out looking. But I remember we went out for my girlfriend's birthday, and we were going to the rooftop of the Durham Hotel. And it's nighttime at this time, and we see this man, and I don't know, he may have been homeless, maybe not, but he said something. And I just remember grabbing her and pulling her close to me as we continued walking, and it was for protection. So definitely, I want high alert when she's around. That even more so than when I'm by myself.
No, and that's real. And even I think as you get older, especially when you walk in, you just pick up on certain cues that if you're walking in the street, that you stand on the side of the street and that the girl stands on the inside. So just things like that we don't really give too much a second thought about, but how important this idea of protection is. But the whole purpose that God was angry with them because God was saying that I'm your protection. Even though the odds seem stacked against you, that I'm going to be the one who protects you. And I say this, I say the exact scenario happened years later in Israel's history, but in the reverse. I said, despite Israel's unwavering, they eventually entered the promised land, which was Canaan. However, they entered with the same type of mentality. They failed to trust God and put their trust, and instead they put their trust in the fortified cities. I say the prophet Hosea warns, saying, "For Israel has forgotten his maker and built palaces, and Judah has multiplied their fortified cities. So I will send fire upon the city, and they shall devour her strongholds." And again, when we read scripture, you got to realize this is actual history that's transpiring, and it actually happened. Again, hopefully I'm not boring y'all with the Bible history. It came true when the Assyrian king Sennacherib burned all of Judah's fortified cities except Jerusalem. So it's like they eventually, at first, they were apprehensive into taking Canaan because they saw all the people there had fortified cities, and God says, "No, I'm going to bring you through." But instead, God had them wait 40 years before He would actually bring them through. And eventually, they would go when they would conquer those who were there. And so they now have the land. Still didn't learn the lesson. Hey, I'm supposed to trust God. It was in the reverse, though. They trusted in the fortified cities that they had, and God sent another nation to come and destroy them. And the whole point is saying, God, I'm supposed to trust in you for my protection. Now,
and I wanted to ask you about that. I wanted to ask you, this is the promised land that God gave to them, right? Mm-hmm. Why do you think that they trusted so much in the promised land, the provision, versus the provider at that point?
Well, I think, I always say this. I say Israel is like the test case for humanity. Because as we were saying earlier, it's easy to look at them and be like, bro, why you just didn't believe? Why you just didn't trust? And it's like, how often don't we trust in the things God gives instead of God? You know, even just a couple weeks ago when I was preaching, I don't want to talk about myself, but just for the sake of the argument, where it's like we trust in our own righteousness. We trust, I read the Bible, I prayed, I did a good deed, I did X, Y, and Z, and trusting in my own ability to give me some sort of righteousness as opposed to trusting in God. Same deal. It's like, I've got all these security measures. Israel, I'm protected now. I've got everything I need. I don't really need to trust in God no more. And God is saying, no. Even though you have, at one point you didn't have these fortified cities, now you've got the protection, you've got the military, you've got all these things. You still don't even trust in that. You still trust in me. And it's like, it's so easy. It's just human nature that we trust in what? Creation more than the creator. I said numerous times when I was writing, I just saw just this natural pattern. It's like, instead of looking to God, we look to the creation. The first chapter was what gives you worth and value. If you don't find your worth and value in God, you find it in creation. How do you define truth? If you don't find your truth in God, you find it in creation. In regards to this one, what gives you your protection? If I don't look to God, I'm looking to my gun. I'm looking to my security system. I'm looking to my bodyguard. I'm looking to creation, to what? My fortified cities, to what? Give me these things. And it's like, we put God on the back burner when God is saying, no, I'm the one who protects you. And I think that's the reason why. It's just human nature. We would much rather, especially because it's such in an immediate sense, it forces us, it gets us out of our comfort zone. That if I don't have these things, I feel naked. But it's like one of the, like we were saying it before, and even I remember with me and Jamel, I was asking, like, what is one of the greatest promises God has given us? He says, I'm with you. And I think we don't really fully grasp what that means, that when God says, I am with you, that nothing is going to come against you, that I'm with you. And so I think that's one of the reasons why, and I think that's a great question, because it led me into the one that I was going to ask you, because there's extremes. We've got the extreme of someone who doesn't trust in God at all and just trusting in things. And then we've got the one who just trusts in God and doesn't take the necessary steps for, protecting themselves. Because I don't want anyone who's listening to say, I don't need to do anything to protect myself. I just want to trust in God. But there's an element of common sense. Like we were talking about earlier. Common sense tells you, don't leave your doors unlocked. You can't just be like, God is going to protect me. No, you got to exercise some common sense. So how do you balance trusting in God but using common sense? There's nothing wrong with an alarm system. There's nothing wrong with owning a gun. But how do we balance that with trusting that God is the one who ultimately is our protector?
I think that it comes down to we as people can only do so much, right? So we have to put in place the common sense. We have to put in place the protections that we can put in place, whether it's the alarm system or we're talking about the club on our cars earlier. And then we have to include an element of faith. We have to say, well, God, I've done what I can here, but ultimately it's you who's going to protect me, because even if we put those things in place, something can still happen, right? Yeah. Right? Somebody can still break in. Maybe they can get through the window or whatever it is and still get to our stuff or still get to our family or whatever it is that we're trying to protect. And so there's always going to be, there's no way that we can 100% guarantee that the measures that we put in place are going to give us complete protection. But we can put forth our best effort, and then it goes to God. We have to look to God and trust in God at that point.
I think that's a great answer, because essentially what you're saying is acknowledge your limitations.
Right.
You know, it doesn't mean, because it's almost the same kind of idea where it's like, you know, God is going to, you know, get me a job, but you don't put in any application.
Right.
You know, you don't do any work, because that's the tricky thing, where it's like we've got to understand this healthy. It's the faith and works kind of deal,
right? Exactly.
Where it's like the works don't justify you, but the works prove that you are justified. Right. So it's like I've got to do, you know, what I'm supposed to do, but that doesn't justify me. I think one of the better examples is like when God tells Abraham to sacrifice Isaac. Right. You know, Abraham could have just been like, I have faith in you, but no, his faith was demonstrated in his works, that he went and he obeyed. As ludicrous as it sounded at the time, he said, I'm going to trust in you, God. But he actually did what he was supposed to do. Right. At the same time, just because, you know, God says he's the protector doesn't mean that we just supposed to exercise just ignorance. Right. You know, we should still, again, like we were talking about, especially with us who have women in our lives, that we're not supposed to put them in harm's danger saying God will protect them. No. Right. Do what you need to do. At the same time, recognizing your limitations. I think the best example, especially me having children, is I can do all that I can to protect my daughter, but at one point I'm going to have to send her out into the world. Right. That I can't keep her in the house all the time. Right. So my limitation is I can't be with my daughter 24/7. Right. So in those times, I've got to trust that God ultimately is the one who's going to protect her. So I think that's the best way. And like you said, answering that question, I think you did a great job. Acknowledging our limitations. Right. You know, that we're not supposed to sit back and do absolutely nothing, but at the same time, we're to what? Trust in God as well. And I think that's what happened with Israel, that they got so comfortable that they trusted in that absolutely. And God was saying, watch, I'm going to send these Assyrians here, and they're going to show you that your fortified cities ain't going to protect you.
Enough.
It's not exactly. It's not enough. And I say, this does not mean one should not use common sense to protect themselves. However, one should not put complete and ultimate trust in these things. Ultimately, this is the case for most. Many trust in creation rather than the Creator. As a result of trusting in creation rather than the Creator, we feel the need to protect ourselves from creation. I say, if you think about it, why does one need to protect themselves? And so that's my question to you. Like, this whole idea of protection is kind of crazy. Like, what are we seeking protection from?
I think it comes down to either we feel threatened as people, or we have something that we value that we feel like needs protection. I think that, you know, as people, when we have something that's like, no, this is mine. No, this is mine. You know, I can't let you have it. I need to do whatever I can to protect it. And so I think we become possessive in that way as well. And so I think it all points back to the Creator and the provider and the provisioner at that point. But it definitely comes down to having something of value or feeling that we're threatened.
Exactly, and I say one only needs to protect themselves if there's a perceived threat. And I say, what are these perceived threats? I say, generally speaking, they are other people. People must protect themselves against those who